Operation Gideon's Chariots has begun with Israel's goal of returning the hostages and eliminating Hamas once and for all. Meanwhile, a former Israeli prime minister said, "Enough's enough. We're committing war crimes in Gaza." Now, starting with some reporting from the ground from Mannie Fabian of the Times of Israel, Mannie says, quote, "The IDF says it aims to occupy 75% of the Gaza Strip territory within 2 months as part of its new offensive against the Hamas terror group. As a little reminder, the previous operations in Gaza, we saw a lot of IDF pushing in, conducting raids and targeted operations, and then kind of pulling back. What we're seeing as part of Gideon's Chariots is they're going to go in and occupy portions of the Strip for the long term, possibly forever. I mean, there's been no end state as to how long this will last. They say when the major ground offensive is launched, the Palestinian population will be pushed into 3 small zones in Gaza. A new safer zone in the Mawasi area on the southern Strip's coast, where Israel previously declared a humanitarian zone, a strip of land in central Gaza's Deir al-Balah and Nusrat, where the IDF has not operated with ground forces, and the center of Gaza City, to which many Palestinians returning during the ceasefire earlier this year. These numbers are kind of staggering when you start to see how many people are going to be moved around in short order here. They say, according to the IDF's current estimates, some 700,000 Palestinians are now residing in the Mawasi area, 300 to 350,000 are in central Gaza, and around 1 million in Gaza City. This means that Gaza's 2 million population will be pushed into an area amounting to just 25% of the Strip when the IDF launches its expanded ground operation. That expanded ground operation is already underway. We're seeing the opening phases of that play out right now, but as it grows, again, we're going to see 75% of Gaza under IDF control. He says the IDF will then capture, clear of Hamas infrastructure, raise most buildings, and hold for the foreseeable future the rest of Gaza, including all of Rafah, Han Yunis, and the towns north of Gaza City. Now, I'm going to show some footage here showing what some of these raised areas look like. I got a couple, I think, from Rafah specifically. When they're talking about raising the area, they're talking about everything coming down. All buildings destroyed, which we've talked about in previous videos. There are circumstances where the IDF, I feel like this has gone underreported, they're going into these buildings and one after the other, there are either tunnel networks popping up in the middle of the building where Hamas fighters can pop out and engage Israeli forces, or they're booby-trapped, or both in a lot of cases. We just played a video last week where the IDF was clearing a structure in Rafah, and when they came in to find out where these Hamas gunmen were firing from, charges detonated, possibly killing, at least wounding some of those IDF soldiers. So that's the threat being pointed to as to why a lot of these areas have to be razed to the ground, and it's not worth personnel going in there to check for IEDs. Fabian says, according to the IDF's plan, it should take just 2 months to capture 75% of Gaza from the moment the operation goes ahead. Currently, the military is in control of about 40% of the Strip's territory. That is a rapid movement. Far different than what we expected from the IDF in the opening days of this war a couple of years ago, where there was concern if the IDF would be able to punch into the Gaza Strip at all, or if the defensive belt set up by Hamas would be too much for them to overcome without significant casualties. And there was a real chance in the opening days of the war that it would revert to just a bombing campaign, and Israel wouldn't risk ground forces pushing all the way to the coast. Now, a few years later, all of a sudden they're saying it's just going to take us a couple months and we'll be in full control of 75% of the Gaza Strip. Now, according to the IDF, currently they have 5 divisions operating inside of Gaza. The Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Zamir, said, quote, Hamas is under tremendous pressure. It has lost most of its assets and command and control. We will activate all of our tools so that we can return the hostages home, defeat Hamas, and dismantle its rule. Now, my understanding is there are still kind of sporadic ceasefire hostage release negotiations ongoing. There was some back and forth today, but it doesn't look like there's been a lot of progress. From what I've seen, it's kind of the same old, where terms are thrown out there. Hamas tends to change them a little bit and say, yeah, we're good at this so long as Israel completely leaves the Gaza Strip. I don't think that's in the cards anymore. I think what we've seen happen progressively over the last few months especially is some of those demands that Hamas may have been able to make earlier in the war, or at least they had a better chance of making them, are off the table now. It looks like Israel is going all in to see the full dismantlement of Hamas. To that end, we did get a statement earlier today from the IDF spokesperson in Arabic warning the residents of Han Yunis to evacuate, giving you an idea of where some of these ground operations are going to be taking place. They say the IDF is attacking with unprecedented force to destroy the terrorist organizations which continue to launch rockets from your residential area. The Han Yunis district is considered a dangerous combat zone that has been warned several times. You must evacuate immediately west to the Mawasi area. And just yesterday, maybe earlier today, there were rockets fired out of the Gaza Strip. Just a few, like 2 or 3, and my understanding is they were intercepted. But nonetheless, it's crazy when you look at how small this area is. It gives you an idea of how well Hamas has been able to hide munitions and still move around inside of Gaza under persistent Israeli ISR and sling a couple of these rockets from time to time into Israeli territory. Now, in looking at Israeli operations, they say the Air Force carried out over 200 strikes in the Gaza Strip over the past 48 hours. They say they targeted terror operatives, weapons depots, anti-tank and sniper positions, tunnel shafts, and other infrastructure. In southern Gaza, they say they struck a building used by Hamas as a weapons depot, an observation post, and other structure used by the terror group. Troops also directed drone strikes on several operatives spotted in buildings near the forces. And we do have a fair amount of drone footage coming out of Hamas in recent days showing individual drone strikes against personnel on the ground. They say in northern Gaza, the IDF carried out a strike with a fighter jet, destroying a building where members of Hamas's Nukba force were operating. They say the Israeli military carried out a strike overnight against key terrorists who were embedded within a school-turned-shelter in Gaza City's Daraj neighborhood. According to Palestinian media, they say at least 25 people, including children, were killed in this strike on the Al-Jarjawi school. The IDF says that the school is being used by Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad as a command center, and that the military took many steps to mitigate civilian harm, including using precision munitions, aerial surveillance, and other intelligence. A lot of nothing new here, a lot of back and forth. We get one report from, say, Al Jazeera or Hamas, a completely different report from Israel, and we're left here on the outside wondering which one of those two has more credibility. And I think everybody at this point in the conflict kind of chooses which side they want to believe. So that's where we continue to be. Now, we did get some interesting footage from Hamas before we jump into these war crimes accusations coming from inside of Israel. We did get some interesting footage from Hamas that I'm not going to show, unfortunately. I'll put up a couple screenshots here, but it's from Al Jazeera. And the problem is, whenever I showed some Al Jazeera footage like a few months ago, they copyright struck my account here on YouTube. You get too many of those, they take the channel down. And I thought that it was fair use because I was talking about what we were seeing, providing additional context. But for Al Jazeera, no go. And they came after the channel. So, look, lesson learned. Not going to show that footage. I'll link it in the description below if you want to check it out. But Hamas coordinated with Al Jazeera for an Al Jazeera journalist to go below ground into some of the remaining tunnel infrastructure. And again, with just a couple of the screenshots here, you can see that this one's still in pretty good condition. And we've got the Hamas guys in their uniforms when they're below ground. And it doesn't really matter that they're in uniforms. Nonetheless, this is the first time, I believe, since this war began that Hamas has invited any journalists at all, or like even their own internal comms people, to show like interviews below ground of some of their fighters. And I wonder how much of this is aimed at a domestic audience, how much of this is aimed at the people of Gaza to kind of, in this video, they talk about how, hey, we're still fighting. We're just using these as staging areas. We're not hiding. Don't worry. We're not just like protecting ourselves below ground while the civilians are above ground. And I wonder if that was meant more at the Gazan civilians to kind of reassure them that Hamas is still there and they're not hiding. But nonetheless, interesting video, like 9-10 minute long video showing the tunnel networks. Now, turning over to the statement from Ehud Olmert, my apologies in the pronunciation there, but he's the former prime minister of Israel from 2006 to 2009, just before Netanyahu came into power. He wrote an article in Haaretz on May 22nd, so just a couple days ago, titled, quote, "So far, we are committing war crimes." And he doesn't pull any punches. This is a long one. I'm going to link the article paywall free in the description below if you want to check it out. I pulled out some what I thought were key statements here. And again, I want to preface this with, I barely understand American politics. I don't have any insight into Israeli domestic politics. So I don't know if there's some existing tensions there and if Olmert speaks for a small portion of the government, a large portion of the government, whatever it might be. Nonetheless, when you have a former leader coming out very well articulating some of his concerns. I think it's worth presenting. He said, quote, "The Israeli government is currently waging a pointless war without a clear goal or plan and with no chance of success. Since its establishment, the State of Israel has never initiated such a war. What is happening in the Gaza Strip in recent weeks has nothing to do with a legitimate war goal." And there was an interesting statement here. I do want to separate out kind of the political and the military aspect here, because we have seen some issues within the IDF, just like we've seen within any military, of inappropriate conduct by forces on the ground. That's nothing new, and it's nothing unique to Israel. But by and large, we've watched the soldiers of the Israeli military carry themselves very professionally from the start of this war to today. And I just saw some interviews a couple days ago. Andrew Fox was putting some of this together, talking about how in talking with a lot of members of the IDF, they're in a place where they're having to kind of adjust on the fly. Like, they have their operational plans, but they don't really know what the end state is going to be. So they have to adjust their war plans as they go. That's not a good way to fight a war. And that speaks more to the political nature of this than the military. It's asking a lot of a military to do that. Anyways, moving back to Olmert here, he says, quote, "In the past year, serious accusations have been made around the world against the conduct of the IDF and the government in Gaza, including accusations of genocide and war crimes. In media discussions in Israel and the international arena, I have strongly opposed these accusations, although I have not spared criticism of the government. In recent weeks, I have been unable to do so. What we are doing in Gaza is a war of extermination, indiscriminate, unrestrained, brutal, and criminal killings of civilians. We are doing this not because of an accidental loss of control of a particular sector, not because of a disproportionate outburst of fighters in some unit, but as a result of a policy dictated by the government, knowingly, intentionally, viciously, maliciously, recklessly. Yes, we are committing war crimes. It's time to stop, before we are all ostracized from the family of nations and summoned to the International Criminal Court for war crimes, and a good defense won't stand a chance against us." Now, this does come amidst what we're seeing in the United States, which is, by and large, from what I can see, indifference to the ongoing war in Gaza. We're paying a lot more attention now to, if we're looking in that region, the nuclear talks with Iran tends to take center stage here in the U.S. I'm not seeing much at all. It's just falling off the plate on whatever side you want to take here. The pro-Palestinian crowd is not getting the traction that they once did. And honestly, even the pro-Israeli crowd talking about how Hamas needs to be eliminated and the hostages need to come home, it's getting drowned out by a lot of other things happening in the United States, which may be perceived by Netanyahu and some of his advisors as a free hand to do more than maybe they could have in the past. So it's interesting to see here some leadership inside of Israel pushing back, saying, we got to stop, guys. This has gone too far. If we go much further down this route, we might not be able to come back. But nonetheless, I will link that full article as well as the Al Jazeera interview in the description below if you want to check those out. But that's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.